Hi, thanks so much for joining our Facebook Live chat today. I'm Christy with UT Southwestern, and I'm here with Drs. Benjamin Levine and Dr. Craig Crandall. Dr. Levine is a professor of internal medicine and cardiology, distinguished professor of exercise sciences, and a renowned sports cardiologist who consults with the NCAA, NHL, NFL, USOC, and more. He's the founder and director of the Institute for Exercise and Environmental Medicine at Texas Presbyterian Hospital in Dallas, where we are today. And Dr. Crandall is a professor for the Division of Cardiology at UT Southwestern. He's also the director of the Thermal and Vascular Physiology Laboratory for the Institute for Exercise and Environmental Medicine. Thank you both for joining us today, and as usual, feel free to submit comments and ask a lot of questions during this chat. That's what we're doing this for. So let's go ahead and get started. Can you just tell us a little bit about why exercising in the heat might be dangerous and what people can do about that?
So I think there are a couple of points that I'd like to make at least up front. And to perhaps correct some fallacies about exercising in the heat. The first thing to keep in mind is that exercise generates heat. High intensity exercise generates more heat because the muscles are relatively inefficient. And so here in Texas, there's one other, of course, important factor, and that's the environmental influences. The sun radiates heat upon us, and the air temperature is really, really hot. And so the problem with exercise in the heat is that in order to control your body temperature, you have to limit the amount of heat that's generated and maximize the amount that you can get rid of so your body temperature doesn't continue to climb.
No, exactly. I mean, that's the main objective, is to avoid your internal temperature being too high. That's what's going to cause the injury. And that can be done by one of two ways: reducing how much heat you're generating or improving how much heat that you're liberating.
Right. And so many people think that the only way or the most important thing for them to do when they exercise in the heat is to drink water. And although it is, of course, important to drink water, that is not the most important thing. The most important thing, there are two important things for any athlete or any coach that you must remember. The first is that you have to take breaks because you have to stop that energy and heat generation by the muscle. That's very, very important. Take a break and get out of the sun to prevent that radiation of heat onto your body. You can drink water when you're doing that, that's okay, and you don't want to get so dehydrated that your body can't sweat. But if you don't take that break when it's really hot out and stop the heat generation, people get in trouble. So that's number one. You want to add to that?
Oh, we just no. Go ahead. Carry on with number one.
I'm going to talk about acclimatization.
Okay, let me jump in. So if you're exercising for a short period of time, let's say you're exercising for 45 minutes or so, you're not going to get dehydrated to the point that a lot of fluid is going to help you. And I would argue that that fluid that you're running with might be better splashed on you than actually drink if it's a shorter duration of exercise. If you're doing longer duration exercise, then clearly that drinking is important. But for short duration, this morning I was running and I saw a guy who was not going very far, I'm sure, that had a big jug of water with him. And I'm thinking, you should probably pour that on him. He would enjoy the exercise more than if he was to drink it.
That's really interesting. So we're starting to get some questions coming in. This one's from Kristen. Thank you, Kristen, for the question. What is the best way to get acclimated to working out in the heat?
There you go.
Great question, Kristen. So point number two is that the way that the human body gets better at dealing with heat is by acclimation or acclimatization. Acclimatization taking place in the actual environment that you're dealing with. Acclimation, if you were to do it in a chamber like this, which is an environmental chamber here at the Institute for Exercise and Environmental Medicine. So Craig is really the world's expert on acclimatization, but in general, the principles are the first few days out in the heat should never be high intensity. Virtually all the deaths that occur in sport are when the team comes out, the kids are not acclimatized, and the first thing they do is a bunch of wind sprints. That should never happen, ever, in Texas.
And with the football players, without the full gear
Right.
on those first couple of days.
Exactly
Usually just helmets only.
So the best way to acclimatize is to do a sustained amount of low-intensity exercise in the heat. And Craig works closely with the Department of Defense and has been very involved in the development of their protocols for heat acclimation. So let Craig do some commentary about that.
Really, just echo what you're saying. It's you just want to, for the period of 10 days, or 7 to 10 days, about 70 to 80% of the acclimation response occurs over that 7 to 10 day period. So exercise, we do currently about 90 minutes. There's nothing magical about that number. You can probably do 60 minutes. Every day, low intensity. If you start feeling overheated, stop. As Dr. Levine mentioned, take a break. Every day, and then what you'll find is on day 7, 8, 9, 10, physiologically your core temperature is not increasing as high. You're better able to tolerate that. But it does take 7 to 10 days exercising lower intensity in the heat for 60 to 90 minutes or so.
So we would urge athletes who are preparing for summer football, for example, before they even start, the week before, they should go out for an hour or an hour and a half and take a brisk walk intermittently with a slow jog, with loose clothing, getting out of the heat, pouring water on their head, because the water evaporation is really the only way that we can get rid of the heat. So, and then do not do wind sprints the first day, right? Those have to be without gear, without a helmet, without pads, giving the athletes time to acclimatize. Once you do that, they'll be fine.
So what about somebody, that is just kind of moderately in shape and decides, hey, I want to train for a 5K or a half marathon? How would you advise them to approach preparing for that when it's really hot outside?
Dr. Levine did some incredible work with doing just that, taking individuals who are very low fit and then doing long-term training, getting to the point where they can run a marathon. So we want to jump in on that.
Yeah, I think there's two different things we're talking about. One is the training, and the other is the heat acclimation. And those things, have to happen in concert. You have to know what's the environmental conditions of your race, right? Because if you're trying for a time, that's high intensity effort, typically. So you want to make sure that you've got a period of time before the race that you've acclimatized and you've trained to achieve the goals that you want. If all you want to do is finish.
For your question, what time is the best time of the day to get out in the heat if you're planning to work out outside?
Well, what time of the day to get out in the heat?
If you're working out in the heat, I guess what time would be
if the question is what time of day is best to work out if you live in a place like Texas, you're going to want to avoid the heat of the day. You want to avoid the time where you've got that radiant heat level where the sun is up and hitting you hard with a lot of heat.
You're going to do some interval training. That is your day to do hard work. You got to do that in the morning, even if your biorhythms say that you're better off doing it in the afternoon, or you've got to wait till the sun goes down.
Is there a temperature where it becomes too dangerous?
It is, but the problem is it's not an easy question because it depends on the intensity. If they're exercising really hard doing high intensity, then that threshold for the temperature actually changes so that a lower temperature can still be dangerous. So there's not an easy answer for that. It just depends on the intensity. Or if they're walking for just 10 minutes or 15 minutes for each mile, then they would be okay at a higher temperature. So unfortunately, I can't tell you a temperature that's dangerous.
We have a question from Lori, and she says, if you're older, is it better to work out indoors, like at a gym? So is age a factor?
Okay, so it depends. If the purpose is for fitness, for cardiovascular fitness, then in that case, and you're living here in Texas in the summer, I would recommend that you would work out in the gym, where you've got the air conditioning, you've got the cooler climate. If your objective is to include a heat acclimation component, so that when you go to the state fair in September, that you're better able to adjust to the heat, then you need to be doing some work outside and following the guidelines that Dr. Levine just mentioned as far as slow, prolonged exercise.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. So if your goal as a cardiac patient or an older individual is to do your cardiovascular training for optimal health, then there's really not a great advantage to doing that in the heat, and you'll be able to have a more efficient and effective workout if you do it under environmentally controlled conditions. In air conditioning, whether it be in your house, or early in the morning if you like to be outside, or in a gym. If your goal is you want to compete in that 5K in Austin in August and you need to perform, and that's your goal, well, you better be heat acclimatized, and you have to take that acclimatization strategy into effect for your training for that event.
So does it interfere with your training if you start to work out inside while you're trying to acclimatize?
So
you do a couple of runs on a treadmill
I see.
instead of
rather than every single day. You want to, what we're talking about is de-acclimation, and there's some data that suggests that you can, if your goal is to acclimate again, and you want to do that first 10 days or so, it's okay for 1 or 2 days to be inside and to exercise. That's not going to mess up. You don't have to start over again and say, back to day 1, I need to repeat this. Because the de-acclimation response takes upwards to a week to 2 weeks or so. And that would be stopping any form of heat exposure. So it would be okay for you to take an occasional day and exercise in the gym.
And so my recommendation then would be, when you want to do your high quality, high intensity workouts, do those under the most comfortable conditions, because the goal of that training session is quality. That may be speed. So if you want to run 400 meters around the track, it's hard to do that inside, but that's going to be best done early in the morning when it's 70 or 75 or even 80 degrees, not late in the afternoon when it's 105, right? So let's say that over the course of a week, and you have 6 training sessions. You've got a long session, an interval session, 3 or 4 base training sessions, and you've acquired your acclimatization, so you've done your homework, so to speak. And then you have to say, okay, how many sessions am I going to do inside versus outside? And it depends on what the goal of that session is. So I would recommend that the high quality sessions, particularly the ones at highest intensity. Why? Because high intensity work generates a lot of heat. Remember lesson number 1. Do that in a cooler, environmentally controlled environment.
So this is a great discussion. We have about 10 minutes left, so if you have any questions, make sure you're submitting those now. We have a question from Ellen again, and she asks, how should I go about taking a shower after working out? Would it dramatically affect my body's temperature?
Well, Ellen, did you say?
Yes.
We really recommend that you take a shower before going to work. So I think all of us and your colleagues and coworkers would recommend that you take a shower.
When she says how, I wonder if she's talking about the temperature of the water, perhaps.
Maybe cooling down, or should she take a warm shower or a cold shower?
There's some data to suggest that if you cool too fast, that takes a lot of the blood that's in your skin and puts it in the cardiovascular system, and depending on how healthy the individual is, that could be a non-issue. You agree?
I think most times.
Non-issue, even if somebody has some cardiovascular disease. So in that case, then if you're okay, then that would really be a non-issue. So if you had a cardiac patient, would you be okay with a cooler shower?
Yeah, I think a cool shower has the advantage of as relatively quickly returning your body core temperature towards normal. So I think cooler temperature showers are always better when you're very hot.
But I don't think a warm temperature is not going to be detrimental.
That's right.
It's just
It's
going
not
to
gonna hurt you.
No, it's not. It's going to slow down the rate.
Did we answer your question, Ellen?
Right back.
Hopefully so. So we have a question from Mendy, and she wants to know, what role do caffeinated pre-workout supplements play in our hydration?
Okay, so this has nothing to do with heat, right? This is about caffeine and hydration.
And the diuretic effect.
So maybe first you can touch on how hydrated does somebody need to be? How much water should they intake before they start working out in the heat? And then maybe talk about the effect of
Caffeine.
pre-workout supplements.
Sure. You want to be adequately hydrated. If you're dehydrated, that's going to affect your capacity to release the heat. And so it's important. For most individuals, they maintain a relatively good state of hydration. The elderly do have a reduced thirst sensation, so it's possible that they can be more dehydrated. But if you know that you're going to exercise in the heat, there's nothing wrong with drinking 12 ounces of water 2 hours or 4 hours so before the workout. That's okay. That's really maybe be recommended if you're going to be outside of the heat. But again, most people are adequately hydrated, and so it's less of an issue before the bout. So the caffeine question, caffeine is a diuretic, and so that means that you can lose fluid with caffeine. The studies have shown, though, because caffeine is most often taken with coffee, that volume of liquid that you're taking with the caffeine cancels it out. So there really is no true additional fluid loss when you're drinking caffeine in the way of Coke or other coffee-type substances. So it really is a non-issue. So I wouldn't be worried about that as far as a diuretic or a dehydration effect.
Now, some people are heavy sweaters, right? And they lose a lot of fluid and a lot of salt. And you can tell that the heavy salt sweaters are the ones who, you got this ring of salt on your shirt or on your hat. If you've got that, probably you're not fully acclimatized yet, because as you acclimatize, your sweat gets more dilute. Or you could be just a heavy, salty sweater. So what typically we recommend to the sports teams is that they weigh the kids when they come in for practice. Let's say they weigh 200 pounds for ease of calculation, right? And then after practice, they weigh 190 pounds. So they've lost 10 pounds of weight. Five, let's just for ease of calculation, about 4 or 5 kilograms. And so they need to drink at least 4 or 5 quarts of fluid. And then they need to weigh themselves again before the next practice. And their weight should return back to where it was before. Because that short-term weight loss before and after practice is all fluid. And a good rule of thumb that I tell most of my athletes is you drink enough so that they are peeing every couple of hours and that the urine is mostly clear, not heavily concentrated. And that's a good rule of thumb.
Speaking of drinking enough, we have a question from Lori.
No, we're not talking about alcohol, Lori.
Maybe we are.
Beer, wine, sangria.
Yeah.
Well, she does ask what are the best things to drink after a workout. So maybe not alcohol.
And so many things, again, it depends. Workouts that most individuals are going to participate in, and that's going to be 30 to 60 minutes in duration. Water is totally fine, completely fine. It would be the recommended. It's inexpensive. You really don't need to have any of the electrolyte drinks. For longer durations, perhaps 2 hours plus, then you might want to consider taking some sort of electrolyte-based drink, whether it be Gatorade or something along those lines.
Right. I think that people probably don't realize two things. One is how little salt there is in most sports drinks. They're mostly sugar and water. The sugar does help move the fluid across the intestine into the bloodstream. That's why all these companies combine sugar and salt together. Some of the companies, and I don't want to be an advertisement for one, some of them have higher concentrated drinks. For those of you who are old enough, you may not be on Facebook, but you may remember the old famous Dallas Pickle Bowl, when the Philadelphia Eagles came and played the Dallas Cowboys at the old Cowboys Stadium, and all the Cowboys were on the floor and in the locker room getting IVs, and the Eagles were dancing on the sidelines because they had pickle juice on the side, and that has a lot of salt in the water. There are many different ways to get salt in. You can simply use a salt shaker, you can eat pickles, you can have salty snacks, combine that with water. Under most circumstances, that's fine. When you're talking about a performance-based question, that is, I want to qualify for the Olympic trials in a marathon, now you start to have to be a little bit more scientific and a little bit more regimented about volume and content and how you're replacing things. But for most of the athletes here in a hot environment like Texas, put plenty of salt on your food, drink plenty of water, replace the water that you've lost so that by the next day you weigh about the same as you did the day before, and just make sure you're peeing on a regular basis. Is there a reason?
Absolutely.
All right, well, with that, we have a question from Rick. He asks, is a person with high blood pressure at elevated risk when exercising in the heat?
Ooh, that's a good question. I'm going to answer that in 2 ways. First of all, hopefully, Rick, your blood pressure is well controlled on an appropriate medical regimen, and I think that should be true whether you're exercising in the heat or in the cold. Exercising in the heat is not especially dangerous for someone with hypertension. In fact, because you relax the blood vessels in the skin when you're hot, because that's the way humans regulate body temperature, you send all this blood to the skin. If anything, the blood pressure is a little lower during exercise in the heat. And Dr. Crandall has done some just fascinating work showing that if you regularly put your legs or part of your body in hot water, you can actually help treat hypertension by relaxing those blood vessels and sending all that blood through the large vessels out into the skin, teaching them how to relax and accept all that blood. So I don't think there's an unusually or any especially high risk of someone with hypertension exercising in the heat, though I do encourage you to make sure that your blood pressure is under good control.
All right, well, it's about time for us to wrap up, but I'm sure some of you are wondering what is behind us. Can you guys tell us about that?
Sure. This is an environmental chamber. It's a very unique chamber here at the Texas Health Presbyterian Hospital at the Institute for Exercise and Environmental Medicine. This is our environmental physiology unit. Outside the range of your camera, this chamber is 40 feet long, 9 feet in diameter, and it has 3 separate compartments. Each one can dive to 6 atmospheres of pressure. That's pretty deep. Or it can fly to 100,000 feet above sea level, almost a pure vacuum. And it produces altitude and depth. This side over here is heavily insulated. So this is our research end, and we can control temperature from 0 to 120 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, in Dr. Crandall's laboratory, in another part of the building, he has a chamber that is even better at controlling temperature and humidity. This one mostly controls barometric pressure. We treat patients with hyperbaric oxygen therapy to help heal wounds, to treat the bends, to carbon monoxide poisoning, crush injuries, a variety of different things for medical purposes. And then we do research on novel therapies. For example, I didn't even know this until a couple of years ago that you can use hyperbaric oxygen to treat inflammatory bowel disease, ulcerative colitis, for example.
Wow.
And we have an interesting study that we're partnering with a division of gastroenterology at UT Southwestern and our hyperbaric team here at Texas Health Presbyterian to do some really interesting studies in that regard. We've done a lot of altitude training studies. We put treadmills in here and test athletes if they want to run at 8 or 10,000 feet. So it's a truly unique chamber.
All right, well, thank you both so much for joining us today, and thanks for everyone that tuned in. This chat will be available here on Facebook and on YouTube if you'd like to catch it later. And just thank you so much for joining us. We'll catch you next time.
Bye. Thanks for participating and joining.